All animal respiratory systems facilitate gas exchange because all animals do cellular respiration using oxygen to convert glucose into ATP. So the function of the respiratory system in animals is to get oxygen to their cells and rid those cells of the waste product carbon dioxide. The gas exchange always occurs across a large, thin, and moist respiratory surface, which is going to facilitate that gas exchange. It can be the skin in amphibians, gills in fish, the tracheal system in arthropods, or the lungs, like you see here in mammals. Important point here. This gas exchange, regardless of the respiratory surface at play, is driven by the physical process of diffusion. Diffusion is a passive, an energy-free process where molecules move from areas of high concentration to areas of low concentration. All animal life evolved in the oceans, so let's start there. Obtaining oxygen in aquatic environments is considerably more difficult, more energetically expensive than acquiring oxygen is from the air, because liter for liter, there is more oxygen in the atmosphere, in the air that we breathe, than in the water. So as you would probably anticipate, different lineages have evolved different respiratory systems to meet their oxygen demands, but they're all based on the same physical process of diffusion, the movement of molecules from areas of high to low concentration. The segmented marine worms, like you see on the left, they have these feathery, filamentous parapodium. These things have really high surface area, and they're going to facilitate gas exchange from the seawater into the parapodium and funnel that oxygen down into the respiring cells. The echinoderms, like the starfish that you see on the right, have gills that are embedded throughout their rays or their arms. The gills of fish are truly amazing. So gills are composed of these long gill filaments that are running in parallel. If we take a closer look at the gill filaments, they have what's called a counter-current exchange. What that means is water is running in this direction and blood is running in the opposite direction. What that means is it creates this positive net diffusion gradient. So if we look here at the counter current exchange, water's flowing this way, blood is flowing this way. At every point along this interface, the oxygen is going to flow down gradient from the water into the bloodstream. See, partial pressure of 60 oxygen right here, moving down here into the blood, which has a partial pressure of just 50 at this point. So oxygen always moving down gradient across the counter current exchange in the fish gill. Arthropods, like this katydid, have evolved a tracheal system of tubes and air sacs to deliver oxygen and remove carbon dioxide from their internal cells. So the external openings on this grasshopper, right here, 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 these are called the spiracles. So those little pores at each section along the abdomen of the grasshopper are how it breathes. The air flows in through the spiracles into this network of trachea, which structurally are very similar to the trachea in our necks. The oxygen flows into air sacs. The air sacs are distributed throughout the arthropod's body. As the air sacs inflate, the partial pressure of oxygen goes up in the air sacs, causing that oxygen to diffuse across that respiratory surface and to the grasshopper's respiring cells. Mammals, as well as amphibians, reptiles, and birds, have infoldings of their external surface that we call lungs. So air in a human enters through the nasal cavity as well as the mouth. It travels down this cartilaginous windpipe called the trachea. It splits into the bronchus. There's one running in each direction, which gets smaller still and turns into these bronchioles. And then it's going to terminate in these little, what look like little bunches of grapes called alveoli. There's a look at the alveoli, those little bunches of grapes. But the important point here is the physical process of diffusion that was at play when those air sacs inflated in the arthropods is the same process that's driving the diffusion of gases here. So the alveoli inflate, the partial pressure of these little air sacs goes up, and that's going to drive the diffusion of oxygen across that moist epithelial respiratory surface and into the capillaries so that it can travel to all of the respiring cells via the circulatory system. At the same time, we've got deoxygenated blood coming in here, and carbon dioxide is diffusing from the capillaries into the airspace. Respiration in our lungs is powered by the thin, flat diaphragm muscle. So when we inhale, the diaphragm contracts and moves down, increasing the volume of our lungs. Remember, there's an inverse relationship between pressure and volume. When volume goes up, pressure goes down. So as the volume of the lung increases, the diaphragm contracts and we inhale, the pressure in the lungs decreases. So air is then going to rush into the airspace. When the diaphragm relaxes, the volume of the lungs is going to decrease, driving the pressure up and forcing air out of our bodies.